We know it's football. No, this is football. Now let me tell you what that means. I can hear God bringing these millions of people around him, saying, I am God. You've forgotten who I am. But let me tell you who I am. I'm the God who brought you out of Egypt. I'm the God who set you free from slavery. I'm the God who sent the plagues. It wasn't the sun god. It wasn't Ra. It was me. Now, if you want a relationship with me, then you need to hold on to these. These are my expectations for you. This is the covenant that I'm making for you. And one thing about a covenant, if you have simply a contract, you don't need to have a relationship, right? You make a contract with your auto dealer. Doesn't mean you have a relationship with him. You just have a contract. He says he'll do this. You say you'll do this. There's really no other relationship. But in a covenant, you can't have it without a relationship. A covenant requires a relationship, and it's spelled out very particularly. And then it's sealed, at least back then, with some very gruesome things. Usually a covenant was sealed by splitting an animal from top to bottom, from front to back, a long way. And then each of the parties would pass through there, basically symbolically saying, if I break this covenant, that's me. Okay, that's a very visual reminder. You didn't want to be that animal split from head to toe. And when the covenants are sealed, they hold each party responsible. Interesting thing is normally when one party breaks a covenant, there are consequences. And one of those may even be death. But as many times as we've broken the covenant, as many times as we've turned that relationship upside down, God, in his grace, has redeemed and forgiven. And he's never broken the covenant yet. God continues his portion of the covenant. He continues to do what he says he'll do. He continues the promises, and yet, even when we've turned away from that, he continues on and he forgives. God is as bound to that covenant as we are. Now let's look at those 10 commandments. First of all, they're rooted in a relationship. 2, actually. The first 4 commandments that we read deal with our relationship with God. How is that going to look? You will have no other gods before me. You will not take my name in vain. In other words, don't start making for yourselves other gods. There is only one, and I am him. 4 out of the 10 deal with our relationship with God. The last 6 deal with our relationship with one another. What are the things that are going to build relationship with all of us? If we want to come back into this garden, if we want to be able to walk with God in the cool of the day, if we want to be able to restore paradise once again, then it's not only a relationship with God that we need to have, it's a renewed relationship with one another. One that is devoid of the sin. One that is devoid of all of the things that pull us away from one another, instead bring us together with one another. So it says we shouldn't covet. In other words, we shouldn't let our desires have the best of us and want things that aren't ours. We shouldn't commit adultery. Seems like the same thing, only with people. We shouldn't steal. We shouldn't kill. All of the last ones deal with our relationship with one another. So we've got 2 things that God says are important. Use the cross as a visual. You've got the upright, which deal with God, and you've got the horizontal, which deal with us. And the perfection of both of those is Jesus Christ. He's the one that brings all of those commandments into clear focus. and brings them into view for all of us. One of the things as Christians that we tend to rail against is this moving the Ten Commandments out of courthouses and schools and everything else, right? Even if we don't personally, maybe we've read it, you know it. And I think there's probably a part of all of us that says, that's too bad. That's a shame. Let me throw another little glitch in there. It may be that the people who oppose having 10 commandments in courthouses and schools know something that we don't, that we've forgotten. You see, I don't think that any of them would have any problem with most of the 10 commandments. Thou shalt not steal. Sounds like a good one to have in a courthouse. Thou shalt not kill. Even thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not covet. All of those things. But it's when you get down to, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage, and you will have no other gods before me. They understand that that's a relational statement. They understand that once you give yourself to that, everything changes. And so you can't give yourself to the 10 commandments without giving yourself fully to God. And if you don't believe in God, if you don't want God to be a part of your life, then it's easy to see why the 10 commandments don't fit. Not because you don't appreciate all of the rules. You just don't want the relationship. And the relationship is what makes the 10 commandments work. Without our relationship to God, none of those make any sense. The 10 commandments outline our human response to God's grace. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of slavery. If you obey these commands, it says, God will deliver you from Egyptian slavery. If you obey these commands, it says God will hear your cry and will send you a deliverer. There's always deliverance first, commandments second. It isn't God saying, first, you keep all of these commands, and then I'll deliver you. No, it says, I'll deliver you. Now, if you want to continue this relationship, here's my commands. Here's my expectations. Here's what I expect to happen in this relationship, and here's what I expect to do. So the 10 commandments move us from the abstract to the actual by specifying our human behavior. It's kind of the difference between when we stand up in front and we take our vows as husbands and wives in marriage. We say, I will do this, 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 and this. Is that the end of it? Well, there's a lot of people who have taken those vows who then promptly forget to do those vows. You can't just say, I will love, I will honor, I will cherish, and then from that moment on go off and do whatever you want. Same way, when we stand as members of a church, we stand and we take vows. And we say, I believe in this and this and this. I believe in one God. I believe in the Holy Scripture. I believe in the forgiveness of sins. And if from that point on we go out and we live our lives totally contrary to that, did we really believe the vows? God's saying your actions and your vows have to coincide. That covenant and your behavior need to be one and the same. So instead of saying, do you believe in God? We should be saying, do you honor anything or anyone above the true God? Has God been replaced by something physical or material in your life? Have you dishonored God's name by using it in a frivolous manner? Is your work more important than your relationship to God? Do you honor your father and your mother? Do you value human life? Have you